What if I told you one man at the age of 69 marched his half-starved army through the deathly Alps, crushed Napoleon's generals, and defied nature itself, only to be betrayed by his allies? This is the forgotten legend of Suvorov. The year is 1799. Napoleon is in Egypt, chasing dreams of empire. But in Europe, chaos brews. A new coalition forms. Russia, Austria, Britain, and the Ottomans united to strike back against revolutionary France before it's too late. Among the allies, one name echoes with fear and awe: Alexander Suvorov, a warrior with 63 battles and 63 victories. He didn't lose, not once. Soldiers called him the ghost of victory. Enemies prayed not to meet him. Suvorov had no love for theory. His war doctrine? Speed, cold steel, surprise. He marched his men fast, struck hard, and won with bayonets. While others wrote manuals, he carved victory into enemy lines. With Napoleon distracted in Egypt, France looked vulnerable. Suvorov was appointed commander-in-chief of the Allied army in Italy. His mission: destroy the French grip on the region and bring war to their doorstep. Suvorov moved like a storm. In spring 1799, he led 70,000 Russians and Austrians across northern Italy. City after city fell. Then came Milan, heart of the French-controlled Cisalpine Republic. Suvorov didn't hesitate. He was coming for it. Milan surrendered. Suvorov entered not as a liberator, but a conqueror. He dissolved the Cisalpine Republic, disarmed local militias, and replaced French currency with Austrian coin. It was no longer France's Italy. It was his battlefield now. But France wouldn't back down. General Moreau took over command from the disgraced Scherer. He was sharper, faster, more capable, and he was ready to challenge Suvorov head-on. The next battle would test them both. The two armies clashed at the Ada River. Suvorov's forces outmaneuvered Moreau, flanking both sides. French troops fell into chaos. A 12-hour battle left Milan's roads soaked with blood. The Allies captured thousands, and Moreau barely escaped. Even as he celebrated, Suvorov kept moving. Word came that another French force under General MacDonald was heading north. Suvorov set out for the Trebia River. His plan? Trap MacDonald before he could join Moreau. The Battle of Trebia raged for 3 days. Heat, mud, hand-to-hand chaos. Bayonets ruled the field. Suvorov's troops fought like demons. MacDonald's army shattered under the relentless assault. Nearly 6,000 French were lost. Another miracle, another Suvorov victory. Victory wasn't enough. Austria feared Suvorov's growing fame. Britain distrusted Russian ambition. Behind closed doors, they whispered, "Remove him." Plans to storm Genoa were shelved. Politics, not France, would be Suvorov's next enemy. Then came the unthinkable. Suvorov was ordered to leave Italy and march into Switzerland. Through the Alps. No roads. No supplies. The Austrians, with 60,000 men, had withdrawn. Suvorov had 27,000. Betrayed, alone. And still he obeyed. St. Gotthard Pass became a graveyard. Men slipped and vanished into fog. Horses tumbled off cliffs. Cannons were pushed into the abyss. Every step cost blood. Suvorov walked on foot, shouting, "Where the goat can pass, the Russian can follow!" Food ran out. Ammunition, too. Nights came with ice and silence. Some froze sitting upright. Others laid down and never got up. Soldiers wrapped in rags slept on rock. No fire, no shelter, just God, Suvorov, and the will to survive. They reached Muotathal Valley and were surrounded. The French outnumbered them 3-1. Emperor Paul's son, Grand Duke Constantine, was with them. Capture was unthinkable. Suvorov gathered his officers. "We're Russians. God is with us. We don't retreat. We survive." With no artillery, the Russians attacked with bayonets alone. In fog and snow they charged. Men screamed, rifles cracked, steel pierced flesh. A cannon was lost. One commander roared, "They've taken our cannon! Get it back!" And they did, by hand. On October 1st, Suvorov launched his final assault, front and flank. A storm of steel. The French lines collapsed. The Russians, exhausted and starving, had won again. Against logic, against odds, against betrayal. The mountain ghost struck once more. There were no roads left, only icy cliffs. Visibility fell. Men walked blindly. Many slipped and died. Suvorov ordered cannons thrown off cliffs to save lives. Men crawled barefoot, bones frostbitten, but they kept moving, dragging history behind them. From the ice, Suvorov wrote, "My troops are abandoned. My allies betray me. I'll no longer serve those who sacrifice Russia for empire." It was the last campaign of his life. Not a defeat, but a masterpiece of defiance. Suvorov returned to Russia a hero, but broken. He died 1 year later. He never lost a battle. Not one. His Alpine March remains one of the greatest military feats in history. Napoleon called him the only man who defeated me. He disobeyed manuals, outwitted enemies, and fought side by side with his men. He fed the wounded first, walked beside the barefoot, and carried no ego. He wasn't just a commander. He was the spirit of Russian resilience. He was old, outnumbered, undersupplied, betrayed. But Suvorov won because he moved fast, struck hard, and never stopped believing in his cause. His story reminds us it's not age or strength that wins battles. It's will, clarity, and purpose. Most have forgotten his name. But beneath Alpine snow and Italian soil, Suvorov's footprints remain. Not carved in marble, but in the blood, breath, and bravery of men who refused to break. This was no campaign, this was a testament. Suvorov was born sickly. His father said he'd never be a soldier, but the boy read war manuals like scripture, trained in secret, and turned frailty into fury. His strength was forged not in muscle, but in will. Catherine the Great called Suvorov her hammer. While diplomats talked, he conquered. Ottomans trembled at his name. In storm and fire, he carved Russia's borders wider. He didn't speak courtly French, he spoke victory. Unlike other generals, Suvorov dressed like his men, simple coat, no decorations. He said, "The enemy doesn't shoot at medals, they shoot at the soul." His humility made him invincible in their eyes. He refused silk sheets. He slept on straw, under the stars, or in barns beside his soldiers. The general must feel the same cold, the same hunger, the same danger, he said. They followed him through hell. Suvorov laughed in battle. He'd joke with cannon crews, sing songs before charges. Enemies thought him mad. He wasn't. He just knew. Fear cannot live where courage sings. He ruled without cruelty. No floggings, no terror, just example. When a soldier misbehaved, Suvorov would say, "You're better than this." And they were, because he believed it. He once wrote, "The bullet is a fool. The bayonet is a hero." To him, close combat was honor, not killing, but committing. It forced the warrior to look his fate in the eye. Before every battle, Suvorov knelt in the dirt and prayed, not for victory, but for his men. Some say they saw him weep. That was his power. He led with heart before sword. French generals called him the Holy Terror. Moreau saluted him in retreat. Even Napoleon admitted, he fought like no one else. Suvorov wasn't just feared. He was respected by those who tried to kill him. Over 5 decades, Suvorov fought 63 battles. He lost none, not one. His genius wasn't luck. It was preparation, momentum, and soul. He believed war was an art, and in that art, he was a master. When his men marched, Suvorov didn't ride. He walked, step for step, beside them, over mountains, through rivers. He carried his own gear, and when he fell, they lifted him, because he had walked through pain with them. When the French captured a Russian cannon at Mauthauthal, despair set in, until one voice cried, "They've taken our soul! Go get it!" And so, hundreds charged, no orders needed. They brought it back with blood and pride. Suvorov's Swiss retreat wasn't just survival, it saved a dynasty. Among the exhausted was the Tsar's son. Had he been captured, Russia would have fallen into chaos. Suvorov didn't just save soldiers, he saved succession. Some called him a monk in uniform. He ate little, owned less, feared no death. He once said, "Glory is not gold. It's peace in the soul after duty is done." And then he walked into cannon fire. He could read a man's fear like a page. One glance, one posture. He knew who'd break and who'd fight. He promoted not by class but by courage, and he never gambled on weak souls. Once, Tsar Paul gave Suvorov an order that risked disaster. He disobeyed, not out of pride, but out of duty to his men. He later said, "Better lose favor than lose lives." The Tsar forgave him quietly. Crossing a river in winter, Suvorov took off his boots so the wounded could use them. He marched barefoot through freezing mud. When they offered replacements, he refused. Let the boots stay with the brave. Before battle, Suvorov raised a tiny green flag. No speeches, no drums, just that signal. His men knew, now we fight. It wasn't a banner of glory. It was a vow to survive together or not at all. French General Jourdan once said, "If it's Suvorov, retreat, not out of cowardice, but because Suvorov made war unpredictable. He turned maps into riddles, and by the time you solved them, your army was gone." At the highest point of the Alps, when food was gone, Suvorov stood before his men. He said nothing. He just knelt and prayed. When he stood, they did too. That was his command, silence and resolve. Some said Suvorov was part ghost, part fire. He moved like wind, struck like flame, and disappeared before your second breath. He didn't just defeat armies, he erased their spirit. He taught soldiers not in classrooms, but in ambushes. He'd shout, "You're dead," mid-drill, then explain how they could have survived. It was brutal, but it worked. He created warriors, not readers. He defeated empires, but his greatest enemy was cold. It took more Russians than bullets ever did. Even Suvorov once whispered, "We can fight men, but God fights through snow." After a brutal battle, Suvorov found a dead drummer boy holding his flag. He cried, not for the flag, but for the boy who died, believing it mattered. Heroes aren't old, he said. They're just gone. He never dined alone. Suvorov ate with privates, shared soup, stale bread, and stories. To him, war wasn't rank. It was sweat, hunger, and fire shared by brothers. And in that brotherhood, he forged loyalty no metal could buy. When the war ended, he returned to Russia not in triumph, but in silence. No grand parades, just a carriage, a cloak, and a memory heavy with names he could never forget. They offered him a title, a palace. He refused. History is not made in marble halls, he said. It's written where men bleed. And he chose to rest among soldiers, not princes. He didn't draw borders, he earned them. Every inch of ground Suvorov took was paid in frostbite, bayonets, and courage. His map wasn't inked by generals. It was signed by the dead. In Switzerland, allies vanished. Austrian supplies gone. British support evaporated. And still he fought. Let them go, he said. They'll write letters. We'll write history. After the Alps, he wrote a letter. To the mothers of those who did not return, know your sons walked with lions. But he never sent it. He just folded it and wept. They told him, you're too old to command. He smiled and replied, good. Then I'll walk closer to the front. I won't miss the action. And he did. His bones broke. His body withered. But in his eyes burned the same fire that lit every battlefield he touched. Death came quietly, but never before it lost. Today in the Swiss Alps, a stone bears his name. It says nothing of conquest, only that a man walked through death so others could live and never once asked for praise. Even Napoleon, the emperor of ambition, once said, there was only one I truly feared, Suvorov. From one legend to another, respect was the only tribute that mattered. Today, military academies still teach his tactics, speed, surprise, steel. But no textbook captures the most powerful lesson. Be first in hardship, last in glory, and never forget the human in the uniform. In an age of drones and digital war, Suvorov's story still echoes, because victory isn't in the weapon, it's in the will, and the heart that beats harder than fear. He wasn't immortal. He wasn't a god. He was a man, wounded, weary, and wise, who walked through history barefoot.